Welcome to the Triple Crown Champ, your non-stop shop for wrestling talk. We're talking shoots v works, rookies v vets, and champs v contenders. I am your host, the Triple Crown Champ. Let's get into it. So, today I want to talk about AEW. So, the reason I want to talk about AEW is because I have loved wrestling for quite some time, and I can't quite seem to understand the structure of AEW. So today I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about the structure and the nature of the writing, the characters, and the building of stories, because I feel like this is one of the reasons I can't quite get into the production as much as I'd like to. Now, AEW is a wrestling company that has a lot of wrestlers who I have always liked, loved, or thought that they could do big things in the industry. A lot of the wrestlers are products of WWE in some cases. Some of them are from indie promotions whose first big contract was with the WWE. And therefore, it didn't work out with the WWE, so they walked away from that company and therefore went to AEW. It seems to be a place where WWE stars can go after WWE to try and either rebuild their career or make a successful career for themselves. And a company where they have the ability and the chance to do a lot more wrestling than they had the chance to do, at least on television, than they did in the WWE. Now, as far as character building and writing goes, there are characters, there are wrestlers who have come out of the WWE or independent circuit and have gone on to become extremely successful in their own right. Now, some of these wrestlers have worked so much on character work within a company, say like the WWE, that they are a lot better at it than some of their counterparts. I find that AEW doesn't seem to have a proper structure. They have a lot of independent wrestlers and a lot of wrestlers who have come from a more polished product, production-wise. Those wrestlers tend to be people like Tony Storm. They tend to be people like John Moxley. And I think a little bit of that also about Mercedes Moné. When a wrestler focuses more on character production, we get a more complete package. We tend to, as wrestling fans, want to be entertained by the wrestlers. So therefore, what we are looking for and what the staff in the back room of wrestling, what the bookers are looking for, is something significantly different. We look at the timeless Tony Storm storyline, which I believe is by far the best storyline told in AEW. I believe what she has done with that character is a vast change from the early Tony Storm characters, the character that I very much love ever since I first saw her in NXT UK. The glasses, the hat with the spikes, the kind of punk rocker wild girl. That was an amazing character. To watch her evolve and change to something vastly different in timeless Tony Storm is nothing short of amazing. And I love her character work and I love her ring work. It is apparent at this point that she can work with any performer. She can tailor the timeless Tony Storm character to fit any opponent. I recently watched an episode of Dynamite where she was one of the guest commentators and hilariously funny. The character works in so many different mediums. There is so much dedication to that character. She has immersed and engrossed herself in that character so much.
And then I beat you with my small package. They say the best things come in small packages, but darling, you should have worn protection because I railed you with the biggest package there's ever been.
Now, the second thing I'd like to talk about in AEW is the wrestling. Now, the wrestling, it's all a little bit confusing, I think. The divisions aren't exactly clear and who is in them. People pop out of the division. You don't know if they're having a push for the world title, if they're becoming a wrestler in the world title picture or they're not. It's all very confusing, and as far as the actual wrestling goes, I see some of the greatest, most amazing wrestlers not used on the AEW card. They've come over from whatever wrestling company, they may have come over from the independent, and I understand that AEW is clearly a company that focuses more on the wrestling than they do on the presentation. As much as the WWE, I will say they do focus a lot on presentation. I don't think they particularly always do it well, but they do. And I think that might be left to the wrestler themselves, and they get a lot of sway within the way that they present themselves. And sometimes I don't think that necessarily works. If you look at something like the House of Black, now that works for me. So I never quite understand how the members of the House of Black aren't billed higher. And I say that after watching the Mercedes Moné versus Julia Hart match. I am consistently impressed every time I see Julia Hart. Every single time I see Julia Hart, um, the House of Black character steers away from arguably her greatest gift, which is always interesting to me when any performer does that, male or female. If you are extremely good looking, extremely beautiful, and you step away from that to gain your respect in a field of your physicality, your work, your strength, your whatever, that is always very interesting to me. So Julia Hart is a character that interests me a lot. But as much as I speak of that, I want to speak about the wrestling and how someone like Kyle Fletcher. Now, I understand that he's trying to be innovative, and I understand that he is trying to stand out from everybody else. But I watch him in a wrestling ring, and that innovation seems to come at the expense of a lot of safety. And I also feel the same way about Darby Allin. I felt the same way about Darby Allin for a while. But Darby Allin's well loved. Even I love Darby Allin. I love what he does. I love his dedication in all ways. I think he can be a little bit full on as a person sometimes, but that's always going to happen with great performers of any yoke. So I kind of understand that to a certain extent. What I worry about is some of the moves that is being executed in the name of innovation. I think of Kyle Fletcher's Brainbuster, which I believe has already gone wrong once on Will Ospreay in their series of match. But I think it has a propensity to go much worse than it has already. And I think that the AEW need to look at some of the moves that are being executed and maybe talk through before some of these people go to the matches, because maybe they don't know what they're going to do in the ring, and they allow professionals who have been wrestling for long enough to simply just craft their own matches and sometimes just do them in the ring. So I think between that, and you've seen Darby Allin also do some stuff as well. I will say for Darby Allin, the worry is that he's going to hurt himself is more than anything else. And as I said before, Darby Allin is so well loved that I think nobody wants to see Darby Allin hurt himself. Nobody wants to see anyone hurt themselves, but we especially don't want to see Darby Allin hurt himself. As for Carl Fletcher, we don't want to see Carl Fletcher hurt anybody else. That's not to say anything against Carl Fletcher. He is a fantastic wrestler. And he's well placed with someone like Don Callis, by the way, who I think is arguably the next Paul Heyman. He's not as good as Paul Heyman. I mean, time will tell. Maybe he'll get better, but he is very good in his own right as a manager. I quite like Don Callis, but yeah, Carl Fletcher well placed in the Don Callis family. I worry slightly about some of the wrestling and the execution of it, and then it can be dangerous. And that is another reason why, as a package, I say I don't quite understand AEW. That's it for me now, guys. So if you like the content, please hit a like, a subscribe, hit the notification, lets you know what I'm uploading next. And until then, I have been the Triple Crown King. See you next time.